Hey everyone, this is Raiden with Raiden Mods, and I'm making this video to show you how to install the new Drake building for the Stern Godzilla pinball machine. This is for the Pro model only. So when you get the kit, it'll look like this. And the first thing we're going to do is remove the original building. And we're going to leave all the ramps in place, but they're all going to be loose. So they're all just sitting here. All right, so once we have the building out, we're going to disassemble and reassemble the intersection plate that's inside of there. This part we're still going to keep, as well as the 4 screws for mounting the side plates on. The rest of this we no longer need. The other modification I did to make installation easier is I drilled 2 holes in the front of the plexiglass plate using a 11/32 drill bit. And what that does is allow me to get into the inside, the mounting screws that will mount it down to the playfield easily without having to disassemble everything and then assemble it in the playfield. So once that's done, we have to take apart the building mod. So first we're going to take the top off of this building. There are 2 sets of screws on each face of the building. All right, so I'm going to take that, and we can unplug this for now, and we'll set that aside. Now we have to take 2 of the plates off so that we can get this intersection plate in. So I'm going to take 2 of these side screws out of the front and remove the front plate. And I'm going to remove this side plate as well. Okay. So now we're going to press this wire harness into this groove that's in the back wall. We're going to install the original playfield intersection plate. And then we're going to use the original screws that came with the original building. We're going to mount these new balls onto that intersection plate. And you want to make sure when you do it that this piece that has the tongue coming down is orientated so it's in the front of the building. All right, so once we have those 2 plates on and all these wires are clear, we can install the UFO plate. Now on these side plates, there's a tongue on the side and then a groove on the back and front plate, so you want to make sure that it gets tucked into that groove. And then install the screws on the base. Okay, so that's one. And then we'll install this original screw into the intersection plate. Okay. Now we're going to do this front plate. Now the front plate has these plungers, and you have to make sure that when you install this, you just carefully kind of wiggle it in there, and then move this UFO up. Okay. tuck that tongue and groove back in. Install the side screw. Install the other side screw, and again make sure that tongue and groove are all snapped down in place so everything's locked together. And then lastly will be this front screw that mounts plate to that intersection platform. Okay. All right, so we've got our building ready to install back into the playfield. So now we're going to move to the playfield. Okay. So we're going to take this, and this wiring harness we're going to slip into this hole right here. So we'll carefully guide that through. Make sure both plugs go in. And we will just feed that down and then back around here so that nothing gets in the way. Now we're going to carefully seat this in here and kind of guide these ramps into their space as we go. Okay. It looks like it's all seated right. All right, so on this ramp, you just want to make sure that these posts go in underneath that intersection so the ball doesn't get caught up. Now we're going to mount this down. And this part uses these 3 mounting screws. So if you have a magnetized screwdriver, that works best. Although this one's very weak, so let's see. Do these back ones first. I'm not going to tighten them all the way until they're all in. So this is where these 2 holes that I pre-drilled in the plexiglass come in handy. So I'm going to bring my screwdriver through the bottom. Be a lot easier if I were on the other side of the machine right now. Let's do this one first. Oh, got it. All right, now for this one. All right, so now I'm going to tighten them all down. Okay, so that's locked in there. So now we need to secure these rails back in place. So there's one. So on each rail, there's typically a washer on the bottom of the mount, a washer on the top, and then a screw that runs through. But on this back rail, I find this works better if you take the washer on the bottom out and then just do a washer on the top and run it through. And what that does is it just lowers the front of that rail a tiny bit, but enough to increase the speed of the ball when it comes out, so it hits this trigger a little bit harder. All right, now we'll do this one. And when you do this, you want to make sure these rails are lined up just right with this intersection plate, so that when the ball comes through, it doesn't hit one of the sides and slow the ball down. Now I'm gonna, to fasten this one up, I'm gonna take this plate, lift this up, and bring this in. And actually, now that I'm doing this, I'm remembering I shouldn't have fastened this down to the playfield quite yet. So I'm going to loosen these back up. Just a turn so it can move a little bit. All right. So yeah, that'll be a little better. So kind of rock that in place until it sits. All right, so now it's all seated properly. And we've got one washer that goes under here. And this one gets the big nut. And this one gets the smaller nut. Now I'm gonna tighten these back down so the building is locked in place. Okay. Now these, you can push into these little spots right there. Right there. Okay. Then we're going to tighten these down. And once those are tightened down, you can stick these little boulder covers on. There's one. There's two. All right. Now the last piece, we'll be adding this lid back on, so we're going to plug these LEDs back into the top. And then set that back on. And you're going to need a pretty short screwdriver to do this one. For this, I just cut the handle off. That way I can fit it into these harder to reach areas to screw these screws back on. Now just be careful, don't over tighten these screws because it can crack the plastic.
So just until it gets snug. Okay.
So now that everything's in, I'm just going to test to make sure these all are moving freely. All my rails are in place. Now we're going to need to flip the playfield up to plug in the LEDs. So I'm going to bring this all the way forward. Okay. Now, this wire right here connects to the rear red strobe, and I'm going to unplug this. And it's a red and orange wire. I'm assuming it's the same on all of these machines. And then we're going to plug in this wiring harness into these two. And that's it. So now the building has power. And just to zoom in so you can see clearly. All right, now I'm going to bring the playfield back down. So once your balls are back into the playfield, you can power it back on. I'm going to leave the glass off just for this so you can see clearly how everything works.
Not even the mighty Godzilla can save your... Giant